Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, from massive rains to preparations for war, we start off our broadcast, Katan, with all the flooding in the south. Now, due to torrential rainfall, the flooding in Texas and Oklahoma has made this the deadliest natural disaster in the United States so far this year. Now, currently, the flooding is blamed for at least 26 deaths and 13 people still missing. In Texas alone, 35 trillion gallons of rain has fallen, which is enough to cover the state in 8 inches of water.
Oh, that's amazing. In Dallas alone, hundreds of people had to be rescued in the most recent storms when floodwaters surrounded their homes and cars. Even rescuers became trapped in vehicles and required airlifting to save them. Rescue operations were conducted via helicopter and even by hovercraft. And one firefighter said, "We've been in a drought for quite some time now, and all of a sudden we went from having not enough water to having way too much water."
Well, dozens of Dallas commuters face hours of waiting as they were stranded on highways. Homes were not left untouched either. One man said the water was up to his neck as he went to check on a friend in an apartment. Now, firemen had to carry children to safety as the lower level of their apartment complex had flooded. Many helped their own families to safety and tried to save what they could, but the floodwaters caused great loss everywhere they flowed.
The governor of Texas has declared a state of emergency for 70 counties as flash flood warnings continue to be sent out and rivers continue to rise. Near the Blanco River, almost 1,500 homes now have been damaged. And worse yet, as the waters receded, the damage and the dead are uncovered.
Well, in Houston, officials say 4,000 homes have been destroyed, and inside one man's home, the floodwaters had subsided but were hardly gone, leaving drawers full of water. Now, the same thing being found in house after house. Now, some may think of flooding as being relatively harmless, but in a home that has had only a foot of water come in, which is relatively low considering what some of them saw, It's basically a lifetime's worth of possessions that are ruined and needing to be thrown out.
Sad. Well, flooding is the biggest worry on Texans' minds right now. Tornadoes have also been hitting the state hard. 6 tornadoes reportedly touching down in one night. 3 workers on a gas rig were sent to the hospital after a tornado touched down over their rig, causing it to explode.
Well, with all the severe weather, Texas has reported May of 2015 to be its wettest month on record in 120 years. Now, in Austin, for example, they received 536% more rain than what they normally get, and in Wichita Falls, 451% more. Now, although Texas received the most severe weather, they were not alone in experiencing these heavy rains. Right up through the end of the month, there were flash flood watches from Kansas all the way to the Mexican border.
The rainfall in Texas has been so extreme that many of the state's dams are now a point of concern. One dam 25 miles south of Dallas was reaching its full capacity, and engineers were doing what they could to keep the dam from breaking. With the threat of more rain coming, they placed heavy equipment along the top of the dam and began pumping 15,000 gallons of water per minute from swollen Lake Padera.
Well, there are over 7,300 dams in Texas, and a recent study found that 245 of those dams are vulnerable to giving way. Now, one dam in Bastrop State Park burst earlier in the week, allowing more than 35 million gallons of water to be sent barreling down its creek. Dams around the state are being watched closely as the recent rains continue to fill them up.
Although Texas has been getting a significant amount of rainfall all month, before that it was in the middle of an intense drought. So what has the rain done for the state? Well, Abilene took a look at the numbers in their area and were encouraged but warned not to turn on the sprinklers just yet.
In the past 30 days, many parts of Texas have witnessed some staggering rainfall numbers ranging anywhere from just 2 inches to over 11 inches of rainfall. Now, according to the drought monitors, at the beginning of April, some areas were still under a severe drought category. The latest information as of last Monday shows that the severe drought stage disappearing off the map. And that's just the severe drought. Right. Still in the drought, but the severe drought has been lifted.
So basically not out of the woods totally yet.
Absolutely.
Well, lake levels in Abilene have improved. However, they still have a ways to go to make significant headway in this drought. The city of Abilene receives water from 3 sources, and all 3 are still drought-stricken. Hubbard has seen the best improvements as its capacity has jumped nearly 8% since last month. Fort Phantom has risen 3%, with O.H. Ivy seeing the smallest change.
In an interview with K-Texas, Assistant Director of Water Utility Wayne Lisenby said, "I would say the majority of the state of Texas is probably feeling really good about their water supplies. We're still cautious. We still think people need to use good water conservation practices and be careful that they are not wasting water."
Well, the Vatican is making financial headlines this week, and YPN's Larry McGee has our story on the details. Well, Larry, what about the Vatican and its money that's catching everybody's attention?
Because the Institute for Religious Works, now known as the Vatican Bank, is boasting a significant increase in earnings for the year 2014. As indicated by recently released figures, net profits for the Church of the Seven Hills reached approximately $76.1 million, which is close to 25 times the amount collected for 2013, which was $3.1 million. Advocates say the increase can be credited to an overall improvement in the world's markets, and this comes after the Vatican experienced a notable decrease in profits in 2013 following allegations of money laundering and corruption and the $9 million it paid in consultation fees to repair and stop the damage. The Vatican Bank presently has clientele numbered at 15,000, providing its services to Catholic dioceses, charities, and its clergy. Money and war are often a pair, and this week in war news, former Harvard professor and now Secretary of Defense Aston Carter upset several of his teammates in Iraq after commenting that the Iraqi military showed no will to fight ISIS when the Islamic insurgents conquered the city of Ramadi. Iraqi Prime Minister Dr. Haider al-Abadi says the secretary's observation is wrong and that his forces will retake Ramadi in a matter of days. The Prime Minister's latest strategy against the alleged Sunnis of ISIS is to arm and deploy Shiite militias to accomplish his intentions. That has shown mild success in some instances, but analysts believe, however, that Shiite victories have nonetheless been prolonged due to insufficient training, and it is also for that reason that many are skeptical about Ramadi being quickly recaptured. Also lost in Syria is the ancient Roman city of Palmyra, where ISIS insurgents are rumored to have executed hundreds already. Additional concerns are that the insurgents might destroy the city's ancient Roman monuments, and most importantly, the city's capture gives access to ISIS to new and very valuable stores of oil. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Interesting how they can be excited about their profits while people are losing their lives on a daily basis. Well, scientists say the extreme weather could be a sign of El Nino pattern, and it's getting stronger and gaining strength in the Pacific. Well, if it does, California could get the drenching rains to bring it out of the extreme drought that the state is experiencing.
Tornadoes in the Midwest, Texas flooding, while California is deep in drought, and now a hurricane forming in the Pacific. Josh Willis, a NASA climate scientist, said, "In the past 2 years, science has seen a change in the jet stream that could be caused by climate change. It usually takes on a wavy pattern, causing extreme weather, such as all the snow that Boston experienced this past year." And Catan, I think those numbers were around like 100 inches of snow in one season.
Yeah, that's an amazing amount. Well, now they have their eyes set on an El Nino rapidly growing in the Pacific. Josh Willis said this El Nino has all the makings of a big one, but it's too early to say because the cycle will continue throughout the year and peak in the winter. So it could be a Godzilla El Nino, like he said, or it could be an El Wimpo.
Well, El Nino is caused by a warm band of water in the Pacific, and recent satellite images show it's getting more intense. Californians are hoping that is the case, as the parched, dry ground could use the rain. California actually now needs 75 inches of rainfall to fill its nearly empty reservoirs. 75 inches.
That's an amazing amount of rain that they need.
Now, the latest El Nino to hit the West was in 1998, and California saw record rainfalls that year along with mudslides.
Right. Well, that round of El Nino-fueled storms caused more than $4 billion in damage nationwide. Although California is already seeing a wetter May than it had last year, people aren't rejoicing yet. Scientists predicted a drought-busting El Nino for last year in 2014, but of course, never occurred. That's right.
Well, as we wrap up our report on extreme weather, India is another country experiencing extremely hot temperatures. Temperatures so high that even the roads are melting and disfiguring road markings. Wow. Now, temperatures in the city in New Delhi have gone as high as 115 degrees Fahrenheit, and recently they're expected to hang around that 110 degrees for over the next several days.
Wow. Well, the AP reports that over 1,100 people have died as a result of the heat over the last several days. And Jeff, of course, those latest numbers have exceeded 2,000 as of now.
Wow.
So a lot
staggering number for heat-related deaths.
That is correct. It just tells you how extreme it is at this point in time.
Well, anthrax is back in the news, but this time not as a weapon used by terrorists, but shipped accidentally by the U.S. Defense Department to 9 labs in the U.S. and labs in Korea. Now, workers in those places that received the live spores are being observed and given antibiotics. Now, in South Korea, U.S. personnel may have used the live anthrax in an actual training exercise.
Wow, 22 personnel potentially exposed, but so far nobody has shown any symptoms. The health officials have fanned out to all of those labs that received the anthrax to find out how the deadly material was handled. Now, the anthrax originated at a weapons facility in Utah, and the CDC is there now to figure out just how this happened.
Well, the U.S. Defense Department usually ships anthrax in high levels of safety and security. Now, these spores were shipped at a lower level because the spores were thought to be dead. Anthrax is a bioweapon, and this event was an eerie reminder of the letters that were sent to news agencies and Senate offices in the year 2001, where 5 people died and another 17 others infected in that single event.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, aerial attacks are entering their 3rd month by Saudi Arabia against Yemen. This time, the city of Sa'ad, where hundreds have been killed in this latest round of attacks. Mosques, markets, medical facilities, naval base, and police command centers were targeted in this last round of strikes. Now, over 4,000 people have been killed, mostly civilians, since the Saudi invasion began March 26th.
Seems like the civilians are always getting the brunt of these attacks.
They sure are. They sure are, Jeff.
Well, Yemen's army forces and Houthi fighters have been carrying out counterattacks against Saudi Arabia, targeting tanks in the city of Nadran. Now, 10 Saudi soldiers were killed in an attack by Yemeni forces on Fawaz military base. Saudi forces reportedly left behind their weapons and vehicles and fled on foot.
Well, as the fighting continues in that region, take a look at this bomb explosion and keep in mind of the hundreds of civilians who also include women and children who are often the victims of these wars between neighboring nations. Now that there is reported to be a tactical nuclear explosion there in Yemen.
Well, 3 bombs at 2 mosques exploded, killing dozens of people in Yemen. The first explosion took place inside the mosque, killing a prominent imam and Houthi cleric sitting in the front. Now then, as the people were leaving, another blew up, causing mass casualties, and moments later, a 3rd bomb exploded at a second mosque.
Many Gulf leaders say the Houthis, who control the mosque and are in political power, are backed by Iran. And last month, the country's leader fled the country to Aden in the south and claims to still be in charge and managing the country's affairs from there.
Well, recently, his compound came under attack from his opposition. In a purported press release by Yemeni ISIL affiliate, they stated, "Let the polytheistic Houthis know that the soldiers of the Islamic State will not rest and will not sit still until they have expiated them."
Wow, war, and more war. Well, tactical live-fire exercises, 12,000 Russian soldiers, and 250 aircraft are just a part of the surprise military drill ordered by Vladimir Putin. Of course, American and European forces are set to begin drills in the Arctic Circle. Those exercises will involve over 4,000 personnel and 100 fighter jets in a goal to ramp up military readiness.
Analysts say that this has an eerie feeling of the military muscle flexing of the Cold War days. They also say Putin is testing NATO and the U.S. to see if they're ready for confrontation. He's held several SNAP exercises in recent months on a massive scale. Now, some of those exercises have included more than 80,000 Russian troops. He also has his fighters fly with their transponders off, as we reported, and this is near the European shores, trying to go undetected there.
Right. Well, Sweden also had to search its waters for an unidentified signal that some believe was a Russian submarine. Jeff Mankoff of the Centers for Strategic Studies says the potential for something to go wrong is exacerbated when you have lots of armed people with their fingers on the trigger moving around.
Now, this all comes on the heels of the recent takeover of Ukraine by Russian forces, and where Russia is accused of sending soldiers and weapons to help rebel fighters. President Obama recently met with the head of the NATO alliance concerning Russia, and what he said was, in the increasingly aggressive posture that Russia has taken.
So kind of like a threatening posture that they're seeing, of course, so the United States and NATO are going to have to defend their interests.
That's right.
Well, a NATO official said that they are concerned about the size, scale, and frequency of Russia's SNAP exercises, and NATO is still ill-prepared to think about Russia as a threat because they haven't done any defense planning against Russia. As far as Russia, these major exercises have been made to demonstrate the possibility of a conflict in Europe. And that was not something that was even imaginable among NATO's military leaders, analysts say. Well, it seems like there is war and the continuation of more war on the horizon, and the nations don't seem to have any way out as they continue on this path. Well, if you would like to know what you can do to not be a part of the ways of death, but a part of the ways of life, contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, request your free copy of the monthly newsletter and Prophetic Word magazine. Here's what you can do.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, www.yahweh.com, www.yisraelhawkins.com, or www.yahwehsbranch.com. You can email them at info@yahweh.com, and for any calls outside the United States, please call the number on your screen.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next, the messenger of peace, Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.